Which P2P lending platform will be the best in 2026? As we do every year, we want to find out exactly that in our big top 10 P2P lending comparison. The past few years have gone very well, and the platforms are becoming more and more professional, but they still offer high interest rates. You'll find out now which platform comes out on top in the key criteria. And with that, welcome to Northern Finance. My name is Alex Bleck.
Hi, my name is Alex from Northern Finance. This video was translated with the help of AI so that we can reach more people in their own language. A native speaker has reviewed the translation. Still, some sentences might sound a little unusual. Thanks for being here and enjoy the video now.
Yes, this is now the 6th year in a row that we're filming the popular top 10 P2P lending comparison here. It's really incredible, and in it, we always compare the best peer-to-peer platforms in Europe with each other. And as in previous years, we use our transparent scoring system with 8 criteria, which you can see here, allowing for a maximum of 100 points. Here you can see the maximum number of points that can be awarded for each criterion. And I myself am always invested as an investor on the platforms I'm about to mention, but I'm also invested in the equity of Mintos, Ventus Energy, and Estateguru. I want to share my real experiences with you here, showing how I have invested $105,000 in the following platforms. And as always, you'll find the links to the platforms with extra bonuses and cashback, which you don't get with a regular registration, linked below in the video description, along with all my reviews of each individual platform and my on-site visits, which of course also take place regularly. And it's important to note that the following evaluation reflects my personal opinion and does not constitute investment advice. And with that, I'd say let's get started. You can easily jump to the different platforms here in the timeline. And let's get started with Debitum, I'd say. With Debitum, you finance business loans with interest rates ranging from 11% to even 15% per year. For our calculation, let's assume an average of 13%, which is also very high. Debitum was founded in 2018 and therefore receives the full score for age, and today it has just under 30,000 investors, which gives it 3 out of 5 points for the number of investors. An audited annual report for 2024 is available, and the one for 2025 will probably not come until May or June, as is often the case. That's already worth 10 points. And on the current annual report, we also find a profit of €103,000 listed on page 12, which earns another 10 points. Since 2021, Debitum has also been a fully licensed and regulated P2P lending platform, which is supervised by the Latvian Central Bank. It offers almost all the features you need, such as auto-invest, translations into German, Spanish, and numerous other languages, as well as a tax report. However, what I'm still missing here is a secondary market, so it only gets 15 out of 20 points. As the second to last criterion, we come to liquidity and loan defaults, and I have to say, Debitum is excellent in this regard. Throughout its entire history, Debitum has had no loan defaults, with the exception of one Ukrainian lender, which was relatively small. And there's a war in Ukraine, and there's nothing you can do about war. But everything else that Debitum has done, everything within their control, they have done excellently. You can see their own 3-level loan security structure here. That is certainly helpful. There are numerous mechanisms in place here to ensure that all investors are paid on time. And if you like, feel free to hit pause. Currently, growth at Debitum looks very good, as you can see here, with investments over the past year rising from 113 to 167 million euros. And things are also looking good for the investors. Here, the number of investors has increased from 18,000 to 29,000. Overall, that adds up to a very strong 93 out of 100 points with 13% interest. I currently have €12,490 invested here. The link to the full review, the extra bonus, and details about my on-site visit can all be found below in the video description. Now on to Bondora, the oldest peer-to-peer lending platform in Europe. Founded in 2008, Bondora is now one of the largest P2P platforms overall, with 500,000 investors. As described on the homepage, the Go and Grow product is now the centerpiece of Bondora. Here, as an investor, you invest in Bondora's own consumer loans, earning 6% per year, which, except for a brief 2-week period during COVID, has always been paid out on time, really for 8 years now. And if you request your money, it will be back in your account within seconds. It's one of my absolute favorite products, especially since Bondora became significantly more transparent in 2025. That's a very important point. An audited annual financial statement is also available, and on page 12, Bondora reports a profit of €1.2 million for 2024, which was reduced by special effects. 2025 should be significantly better, but we'll see that in a few months. Bondora usually publishes the annual financial statements here in April. So for all the criteria so far, they get full marks. However, for regulation, I award 5 out of 10 points since Bondora is not regulated as described at the bottom of their website, but the lending business is strictly regulated in all markets. All features are available as far as possible, considering it is an auto-invest and secondary market with a one-click product, but it is a very good product. There are numerous translations of the website and of course a tax report as well, so everything you need is available here. For solvency, Bondora also receives full marks, and for growth and current developments, 15 out of 20 points, since 2025 is likely to have been significantly more profitable than the previous year. But investors are receiving slightly less interest than they did a year ago. Back then, the interest rate was a bit higher, and what I really like is that the statistics page has been redesigned and the entire loan book can be downloaded again. That is truly valuable. All in all, for me, that's a strong 90 out of 100 points at 6% interest. I have invested $9,100 here and I am very satisfied with my investment. The link and review are also linked below in the video description. Let's continue with LANDE, which doesn't perform as well here. Since 2020, farmers have been financed here who want to borrow money for their operations and provide collateral for it, usually in the form of land, machinery like tractors, or even a harvest, for example. That was also the case here, however, growth here was weak compared to the competition. Today, LANDE still has fewer than 10,000 investors, which is not good. An audited annual financial statement is available and shows a solid profit of €196,000 last year. LANDE is regulated and has all the features you need. When it comes to creditworthiness and defaults, the situation here isn't looking particularly good. As I've mentioned repeatedly in my recent monthly portfolio updates, my portfolio on LANDE has seen far too many defaults relative to the total number of loans I've invested in, and once a loan does default, the recovery process tends to take a very long time. As you can see in the last portfolio update, 23 out of my total 90 loans were severely overdue or had defaulted. That's 25.5% and far too much, especially when recoveries take so long. Here's an example of that. This dairy farmer financed €70,000 at 13% interest over 15 months with a low loan-to-value ratio, since he provided a piece of land as first-rank collateral. He paid all the interest, but when it came time to repay the principal at the very end, he didn't do it anymore. By now, we have 2 years of payment default here, and in the numerous updates, LANDE describes what is currently happening, but unfortunately, it's very sobering. The bailiff comes knocking here regularly. That's basically it. And it could take several years before I ever see my money back here, or there is a possibility that I won't see it at all. Of my $50 investment, $38.98 are still outstanding. So I can only give 5 points here, just like for growth, which is also weak. All in all, that makes 66 points for me at 11% interest. And I have $5,900 invested here, but I'm reducing my investment and reallocating it to other platforms. That brings us to Monefit. Monefit SmartSaver is perhaps the biggest growth story of recent years and the direct competitor to Bondora Go Grow. With 7.5% interest, you get 1.5% more per year here, or in other words, 25% more interest than with Bondora, which is quite significant. Your money is also accessible on a daily basis, but only $1,000 are directly in the account and can be withdrawn immediately. Any additional amount takes 10 business days, so 2 weeks. That's fine too, but it's just something you should be aware of. Additionally, with the bolts, you can secure even higher interest rates up to 10.52% per year, and you can also set a desired date when you need your money, for example, to get the maximum possible interest here. And I think it's especially cool that they are constantly working to improve the product here. Just the day before yesterday, a new feature was introduced, passive income, where the interest is automatically transferred to your account, but your original investment can continue to work for new interest. The savings plan was also introduced last year. I think Base is really cool, and it shows that Monefit is responding to the wishes of its investors and is taking all of this very seriously. Founded in 2022, Monefit is already 3 years old and now has more than 30,000 investors. An audited annual financial statement of the parent company, Credit Star Group, is available. And on page 24, it shows a profit of $8.1 million, which is the highest profit in the entire rating. It's really crazy how much money they're making here. The total assets amount to $367 million. The Credit Star Group is truly a giant, you have to say. Monefit itself is not regulated, but the lenders in all the countries you see here are all regulated. After that, all features are available. Here too, just like with Bondora, you have a one-click product. And because of the numerous new features like the savings plan, the payouts of passive income, as well as numerous translations, and of course a tax report, I'm giving the full score here. For solvency, I'm giving a score of 15 out of 20 points because the Credit Star Group had certain payment issues on Mintos in 2022. But those were resolved within a few months, which is a very good sign. These were after effects of COVID. However, all investors on Monefit were always paid on time, and the Mintos investors were also fully paid a bit later and even received some compensation interest for it. And since new features keep coming, now more than 30,000 investors have been reached, and the product works as it should, I'm giving 20 points here, which makes a total of 86 points with interest rates between 7.5 and 10.52%. I myself have invested over $15,000 here, which is my largest investment on a single P2P platform, and I am very satisfied with it. The links to the review, the on-site visit, and the extra bonus are also down in the video description. With that, let's move on to Viainvest. Viainvest was launched in 2016 and is one of the oldest P2P lending platforms, which is also very reliable and has so far always paid out all investors on time. Here, you also invest in consumer loans from the VSMS group operating in Sweden, the Czech Republic, Latvia, and Romania. These loans usually have a term of 6 to 9 months and can pay interest of 11 to 13%. With 46,000 investors, the platform is also very large and is growing well. More on that in a moment. But first, I unfortunately have to deduct major points here because as of mid-January 2026, the annual financial statement for 2024 of the VSMS Group, the parent company, still has not been published. This is absolutely unacceptable for investors, especially with such a large and experienced group in the background, so I have to give 0 points here twice. There's just no way around it. Viainvest is a regulated platform, but unfortunately it does not have a secondary market. Apart from that, it offers all the usual features, except for translations. At the moment, only English and Latvian are available. Nevertheless, Viainvest has historically been a very reliable platform that has always paid all investors, and growth has been excellent, especially in recent months, as you can see here on the statistics page. Last month, 18.9 million euros in loans were published on this platform, and even a bit more was successfully financed, which is really impressive. In the previous months, the amount was 13 to 14 million euros, and this has been steadily increasing month by month. As you can clearly see below, currently 58 million euros are invested, meaning that this total amount is currently tied up in loans on the platform. That's simply very good. It shows that growth is there, but among the current developments is also the absence of the 2024 annual financial statement, even though we're in January 2026, and that just stands out negatively. Therefore, 15 points, which makes a total of 64 points. I have invested 4,600 euros here, as you can see, after I transferred 1,089 euros from LANDE yesterday. I will continue to invest, but when it comes to the timely publication of the annual financial statement, they really need to improve. It was the same last year. The annual statement was also released super late. The link and test are also linked below in the description. With that, we come to the newcomer FF Forest. The platform, founded in 2024, is still at the beginning, both in terms of its investors and several other aspects. But they're really shaking up the market with 17–18% interest rates. Here, you invest in forest land that is bought up in small parcels and then resold as a large package to private equity investors. It's a very exciting business model, but you can still tell how young they are. There isn't an annual financial statement yet, although that's only a matter of a few months. Still, unfortunately, I can't award any points here, it's just the way it is. And the platform is also not regulated, has no auto-invest feature, and no translation, everything is in English. But what they do have is a secondary market through the early exit option for investors, which is very attractive. Unfortunately, there's only an export of transactions here and still no tax report. That's missing and needs to be improved. So far, everything has been paid on time. The credits are made in cash to the account and cannot be reinvested directly, which is quite interesting but still exciting. And the platform is growing very, very quickly, I have to say. Still, I can only award 47 points here with 17 to 18% interest. I have invested 3,000 here, and now we continue with Mintos, the top dog and the largest peer-to-peer lending platform in Europe. Here you can invest in loans not only in Europe, but also in the rest of the world, as well as now in bonds, ETFs, and real estate. The average interest rate here is currently 11%. Mintos was founded in 2014 and has more than 600,000 registered investors. The audited annual financial statement shows a significant loss of 2.7 million euros on page 11 for the past year, after having made a nice profit the previous year. Mintos is regulated and offers all the features that investors need. For solvency, I award 15 points here because although Mintos had numerous defaults during COVID and the Ukraine war, they have handled these very efficiently and have already recovered a lot of funds, as you can also see here in my investor account, where 370 euros are currently overdue, of which 168 euros are open cases. That's significant. The peak here was at 889 euros, but a lot has already been recovered. I have already withheld 744 euros, and only 4 euros and 59 cents are irrecoverable. That amount might increase a bit, but even so, Mintos has already done a very good job. Russian and Ukrainian lenders are of course particularly affected here, and down here we can also see the temporary case where 90% has already been recovered. This is a very good performance by Mintos here, and I hope it continues like this, then it will remain attractive. For growth, I'm also awarding 15 points, which makes a total of 80 points at 11% interest. As always, the bonus link and the full review are linked below in the video description. My investment here has increased significantly over the past year, more than tripling, and is now at $7,900. With that, we come almost to the exact opposite of strong recoveries, namely Estateguru, the platform for real estate financing. Founded in 2014, Estateguru now has more than 159,000 investors, which is odd because in the last top 10 ranking 6 months ago, there were still 164,000 investors. So Estateguru has lost 5,000 investors in 6 months, at least according to their own figures. Nevertheless, they get full marks for both criteria here simply because they have experience. The last audited annual report shows a small profit of 100,000 euros on page 6, so they also get full marks here. All features are present here as well, but their liquidity has been absolutely abysmal in the past. As you can see here in my portfolio, I have more than 6,000 euros in outstanding payments. The investment was smaller, but of course the interest adds up over time. And if we look at this loan here, for example, we can see that practically nothing has happened since February 2023. Other cases from Germany are also dragging on more and more, and in one major case that has now been closed, investors only got back half of their money. That was really phenomenally bad. Accordingly, my assessment for the last 2 criteria reflects this as well. Here you get a 9% return, and unfortunately I have 5,000 euros invested, but I am reducing that as soon as there are recoveries here, and then I will reallocate. Next, we come to Devon, who are newcomers. On Devon, we finance loans from MGL Enterprises, one of the good project developers from Estateguru and Profitus, it must be said, who have always paid their investors. That is absolutely essential, and here you currently get 14 to 15% per year. As you can also see down here, they recently secured financing of $11,000 from the government at ultra-low interest rates. This involves modular affordable housing that was financed, which I was also able to visit on site during construction. Very, very exciting. They have their own factory to quickly produce these modules. Truly a very exciting company. Devon was only founded in 2024, but the developer behind it has been in the market for 30 years. They don't have many investors yet, no audited annual financial statement, and are not regulated. However, a secondary market is available through the early exit, as is the case with this project, for example, in which I have invested $1,000 and where the exit will soon be available, as well as a tax report which is also provided. However, an auto-invest feature and translations from the original English are still missing. What I find especially cool here is that the developer has a very good track record with well-known platforms and is very transparent with the numbers, reports, and so on for all the projects you want to finance. Everything is really explained in detail here. That really stands out to me in a positive way when you want to invest. For solvency, I give full marks here as well as for growth. All in all, that makes 52 points with 15% interest. I've invested $2,700 here, and with that, we come to the last platform, which is Ventus Energy. They also offer the highest interest rates here with 17% plus often additional cashback of up to 5%. Ventus was founded in 2023 and now has 5,000 investors, although the barrier to investing here is a bit higher. The minimum investment here is 1,000 euros per project. What I find particularly interesting here is not only that I was able to visit the site several times and take a look at existing and new power plants, but also that investors are kept up to date every month on the statistics page about how much energy is actually being produced, like here in November alone, and how much was earned from it. 1.26 million euros in a single month. That's quite a lot. The first audited annual financial statement for 2024 is expected in a few months, but it is not yet available, so there are no points for this yet. The energy sector is strictly regulated, but Ventus itself is not regulated. There is a secondary market via an early exit function, which some investors have already used successfully, as well as a tax report. However, there is still no auto-invest feature and no translation from the original English version available yet. Liquidity is very good, as is the growth, which has truly been phenomenal since the start. More than 80 million euros have been financed here in just 1.5 years. That's incredible. All in all, that makes 58 points with 17% interest and my on-site visit. The test report with all the information and a link with an extra bonus can be found below in the video description. So let's move on to the conclusion. Just like last summer, Debitum once again wins the top 10 P2P lending ranking 2026, taking first place with a very strong 93 out of 100 points, and at the same time offering juicy interest rates of 13%. In second place is Bondora with 6% interest, and coming in just behind in third place is Monefit SmartSaver with interest rates ranging from 7.5 to 10.52%. As mentioned, all the links are down below in the video description. On-site visit, test report, bonus, and so on. And Mintos follows right after, taking fourth place with 80 points and 11% interest. Also very good, I would say. With a significant gap, LANDE comes in fifth place with 66 points and 11% interest, just barely ahead of Viainvest, which scores 64 points here with 11% interest. It would be so easy for Viainvest to score more points here if they would just publish their figures on time. Next comes Estateguru with 60 points and 9% interest, ahead of Ventus Energy, which scores 58 points with 17% interest, the highest rate in our comparison thanks to the cashback. After that, the two newcomers Devon and FF Forest follow with 52 and 47 points respectively, and also very high interest rates of 15 and 17%. That's my assessment of the top 10 platforms in Europe. Who is your favorite? Would you rate a platform differently or use completely different criteria? Let me know in the comments below. I'm looking forward to the exchange, and with that, I wish you good returns and see you next time.